Hello and welcome to this edition of World at War. My name is Mohammed Saleh. Pakistan's nuclear weapons are back in focus. Social media has been awash with speculation that India, in the strikes that were carried out during the confrontation with Pakistan in Operation Sindoor, struck the Kirana Hills nuclear site, which many claim houses Pakistan's nuclear command and tactical nuclear weapons. There were even rumors that were spread that there were radiation leaks that had been detected at the Kirana Hills. But all these rumors and speculation has now been laid to rest, with the Indian Air Force stating that it had not targeted the Kirana Hills. And the IAEA has also confirmed that there's been no nuclear leak detected at the Kirana Hills whatsoever. But this latest four-day confrontation between India and Pakistan has brought the world's attention back on Pakistan's nuclear weapons. The Indian Defence Minister Rajnath Singh has now said that Pakistan's nuclear assets must come under the purview of the IAEA. But the question is this: can the IAEA monitor the nuclear weapons of Pakistan? What is Pakistan's nuclear doctrine? How did Pakistan even come to acquire the nuclear weapons? And how has this affected the security situation in South Asia? Our next report gets you more details.
पूरी दुनिया ने देखा है कि कैसे गैर जिम्मेदाराना तरीके से पाकिस्तान द्वारा भारत को अनेक बार एटमी धमकियां दी गई हैं। आज श्रीनगर की धरती से मैं पूरी दुनिया के सामने यह सवाल उठाना चाहता हूं कि क्या ऐसे गैर जिम्मेदार और रोग नेशन के हाथों में परमाणु हथियार सुरक्षित हैं? मैं दुनिया के सामने यह सवाल खड़ा करना चाहता हूं। मैं मानता हूं कि पाकिस्तान के एटमी हथियारों को IAEA इंटरनेशनल एटॉमिक एनर्जी एजेंसी की निगरानी में लिया जाना चाहिए। मैं ये कहना चाहूँगा और साफ तौर पर कहना चाहूँगा।
At this moment, Pakistan is widely estimated to have a total of 170 nuclear weapons. India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh did not mince any words when he raised this very serious question. How safe are the nuclear weapons in Pakistani hands? A nation that for the last 4 decades has used terror and terror outfits as an instrument of its foreign policy. As this report from 2023 states, Pakistan is also increasing its nuclear arsenal to over 200 nuclear warheads by the end of 2025. But does the IAEA have the mandate to oversee Pakistan's nuclear arsenal? Well, the answer is straightforward. As the mission statement of the IAEA on its official website says, the IAEA can through inspections check whether the signatory states comply with the commitments under the Non-Proliferation Treaty and other non-proliferation agreements, use nuclear material and facilities only for peaceful purposes. And Pakistan, like India, is not a signatory to the Non-Proliferation Treaty. Besides, the IAEA can only monitor nuclear sites meant for peaceful civilian use. And once a nation has developed nuclear weapons, the IAEA, under its current ambit, does not have the mandate to monitor the nuclear weapons of a sovereign state. But where does Pakistan keep its nuclear arsenal? Currently, Pakistan has at least 5 air bases from where it can launch its nuclear-capable fighter jets. These include the Noor Khan Air Base, Masroor Air Base, Shahbaz Air Base, Rafiki Air Base and the Mushaf Air Base. Besides this, Pakistan has at least 6 missile garrisons from where it can launch nuclear missiles. These include the Akro Garrison, Khuzdar Garrison, Pano Garrison, Bahawalpur, Sargoda and the Gujranwala Garrison. So when India carried out strikes inside Pakistan targeting 9 terror camps on the first day of Operation Sindoor, the message was clear. Pakistan responded by trying to stage attacks on Indian military installations. But most of the Pakistani missiles and drones were intercepted by the Indian air defence systems. As a reprisal, India then hit back by striking 11 air bases inside Pakistan. And with this, a new military doctrine has been put in place. The Pakistani terror camps will not be able to hide behind the Pakistani army, which time and time again resorts to strident nuclear rhetoric.
पाकिस्तानी फौज को भी बता दिया है, पाकिस्तान में ऐसा कोई ठिकाना नहीं है जहां बैठकर आतंकवादी चैन की सांस ले सके। हम घर में घुसकर मारेंगे। हमारी एयरफोर्स ने पाकिस्तान में इतना डीप आतंक के अड्डों को टारगेट किया, सिर्फ 20-25 मिनट के भीतर सीमा पार लक्ष्यों को भेदना, बिल्कुल पिन पॉइंटेड टारगेट्स को हिट करना, ये सिर्फ एक मॉडर्न टेक्नोलॉजी से लेस प्रोफेशनल फोर्स ही कर सकती है। ये नया भारत है। ये भारत शांति चाहता है, लेकिन अगर मानवता पर हमला होता है तो ये भारत युद्ध के मोर्चे पर दुश्मन को मिट्टी में मिलाना भी अच्छी तरह जानता है।
Pakistan's nuclear doctrine is a flexible one, and although Pakistan claims it will not use its nuclear weapons against a non-nuclear state, but with respect to India, Pakistan's nuclear doctrine assumes a very different tone. It is not bound by the no first use policy. Pakistan's nuclear weapons are meant to be force multipliers, aiming to balance out any advantage that India has in a conventional war scenario. Pakistan would use its nuclear weapons as a last resort if Pakistan's sovereignty is threatened or if there is an attempt at a decapitation attack targeting Pakistan's nuclear command. And lastly, Pakistan could also resort to the use of nuclear weapons to deny victory to India when Islamabad has suffered some serious losses. Operation Sindoor has been put on hold, but the non-kinetic measures that India initiated against Pakistan, such as putting the Indus Waters Treaty in abeyance, are still in play. The only pressure point that India has with Pakistan is the active backing of terror outfits by Rawalpindi. Talks and terror cannot go hand in hand, and water and blood cannot flow together. Operation Sindoor has put in place a new paradigm for dealing with terror. But the question is this: will the recalcitrant military generals of Rawalpindi give up their policy of waging a sub-conventional war against India? In every conventional war that Pakistan has fought against India, the Pakistani forces have proven to be no match for the Indian fighting prowess, which is why the Pakistani generals have been waging a sub-conventional war in India for the last 4 decades. This is Pakistan's war by 1,000 cuts, on the very simple premise that the generals of Rawalpindi want to defeat India by making India bleed by 1,000 cuts. This strategic doctrine of the Rawalpindi generals resorts to the use of insurgents and terror networks. First attempted in the border state of Punjab and then in Jammu and Kashmir, this malevolent strategy aims at instigating religio-political turmoil by supporting and fueling acts of terror. But what success has Pakistan had by waging this sub-conventional and clandestine war in India? And more importantly, why has Pakistan persisted with this nefarious strategy despite its resounding failure in the Kashmir Valley? Our next report gets you more details.
Bleed India with 1,000 cuts is sub-conventional warfare. Its instruments are terror attacks and insurgency. The origin of this military doctrine in Pakistan can be traced back to a speech given by Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, who had declared a 1,000-year war against India. At the emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council on 22nd September 1965. Following the tremendous setback of the Third India-Pakistan War of 1971, which ended with Pakistan's dismemberment, it became amply clear that Pakistan was no match for India on the battlefield. Kashmir could not be wrested out of India's hands by a conventional war. A new strategy had to be devised. Under the changed circumstances, the idea of continuing the conflict by inflicting 1,000 cuts on India took shape. It was Pakistani Army Chief, General Zia-ul-Haq, who gave form to Bhutto's 1,000 Years War with India by bleeding India through 1,000 cuts doctrine using covert and low-intensity warfare. General Zia-ul-Haq deposed Prime Minister Bhutto in a military coup on 5th July 1977. The Afghan Mujahideen, who had been trained and funded by the CIA, using the Pakistan's ISI, managed to oust the Soviet troops from Afghanistan. After a decade of abrasive and grueling warfare, the success of the Afghan Mujahideen in expelling the troops of the Soviet Union from Kabul whetted the appetite of the Rawalpindi generals. Feeling emboldened, the very tactics employed by the Afghan Mujahideen were then redirected towards India. This was Pakistan's new strategy to fight for Kashmir against India. This was the beginning of Pakistan's war by 1,000 cuts, which was both sponsored and protected by the Pakistani military. In 1989, an armed insurgency backed by Pakistan erupted in the Kashmir Valley, which continued through the 1990s and early 2000s. Things came to a head in 1999 when Pakistani soldiers, disguised as militants, infiltrated into positions on the Indian side of the line of control, resulting in the Kargil War. Despite the defeat in the Kargil War, Pakistan continued with its malicious strategy. On December 13, 2001, 9 people were killed in an armed attack on the Indian Parliament in New Delhi. The perpetrators of the attack, all 5 Jaish-e-Mohammed terrorists, were killed by the security forces. The terror outfits Lashkar-e-Toiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed were blamed by India for the attack. Subsequent to the attack, a massing of India's and Pakistan's militaries along the line of control took place, and the standoff came to an end only in October next year, following international mediation. On November 26, 2008, in a carnage which lasted for 3 days, 10 armed gunmen opened fire on civilians at several sites in Mumbai, killing more than 160 people. The only attacker captured alive, Ajmal Kasab, admitted that the attackers were members of Lashkar-e-Toiba. India broke off talks with Pakistan in the wake of the Mumbai attacks. On September 18, 2016, in one of the deadliest attacks on Indian security forces in Jammu and Kashmir in 2 decades, 4 terrorists from the Pakistan-based Jaish-e-Mohammed group stormed an army base in the town of Uri and killed 19 soldiers. 12 days later, Indian Army responded by conducting surgical strikes, destroying terror launch pads in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. But Pakistan did not learn its lesson. In February 2019, 40 Indian paramilitary personnel were killed in the Pulwama district of Jammu and Kashmir by a vehicle-borne suicide bomber. India responded in the early hours of February 26, hitting what it called Jaish-e-Mohammed's biggest terrorist camp in Balakot with airstrikes. It was India's first strike deep inside Pakistan since 1971. Pakistan responded with air raids, which led to a dogfight and the brief capture of the Indian pilot Abhinandan Varthaman. Six years later, a red line was crossed with the bloodshed in Pahalgam, in which 26 civilians were killed in a hail of gunfire. The dastardly attack on tourists by terrorists was the deadliest against the civilians since the 2008 Mumbai terror attacks. The calculated assault on the lives of innocent civilians led to a strong response by the Indian forces. A ceasefire between the arch-rivals is in place, but given Pakistan's past misadventures and its state policy of using terror to bleed India with 1,000 cuts, the question is, will Pakistan finally learn a lesson and abandon its malevolent military doctrine?
In what is now regarded as one of the most audacious and technologically advanced operations, the Indian Air Force used the Brahmos supersonic cruise missiles to devastating effect during the retaliatory strikes on Pakistani air bases in round 2 of Operation Sindoor in the early hours of the 10th of May. Reportedly, 15 Brahmos missiles were launched in precision attacks, which targeted critical infrastructure across 11 of the 12 key Pakistan's Air Force bases, effectively paralyzing its air defense and strike capabilities. Our next report gets you more details.
In the annals of South Asian military history, India's major counter-offensive on the intervening night of May 9th and 10th, targeting 11 out of 12 key Pakistani Air Force bases, spanning the length and breadth of the country, would go down as the most daring and tactically ambitious counter-offensive ever witnessed between the nuclear-armed arch-rivals. As Pakistan attempted to target civilian and military infrastructure in India, New Delhi, left with no other option, retaliated with round 2 of the broader Operation Sindoor, with the Brahmos missiles spearheading the Indian Air Force's multi-layered assault strategy. Incidentally, this was the first time Brahmos missile system was used in an active conflict, delivering high-precision strikes which crippled key Pakistani air assets and defense networks. The performance of Brahmos missiles exceeded expectations. The Indian Air Force had devised a unique, brilliant plan to fool the opposition. First, a dummy aircraft was launched, which was designed to simulate an incoming fighter threat. The decoy tactic, as intended by the Indian Air Force, prompted Pakistan to activate its radar and air defense systems, including the HQ-9 missile batteries. Once the Pakistani systems were exposed, Indian forces launched loitering munitions, such as the Israeli Horop drones, to neutralize the air defense grid. As soon as the Pakistani radar network was compromised, the Indian Air Force followed up with long-range precision strikes. The Brahmos cruise missiles, alongside Scalp, Crystal, Mace and Rampage munitions, launched from fighter aircraft operating under the Western and Southwestern Air Commands, were employed to devastating effect. Runways, hardened centers and command centers were disabled, significantly degrading the Pakistan Air Force's ability to launch counter-operations. Such was the devastation caused by the Indian strike that the Pakistani military was forced to relocate many of its aircraft to rear bases, owing to the loss of several high-value assets. Not just that, the high-intensity Brahmos-led strikes forced Pakistan to abandon any plans it had for further retaliation. Even more significantly, in a telling sign of the damage inflicted, Pakistan was compelled to urgently seek a Director General of Military Operations level meeting, wherein it promised a pause in hostilities and exploration of an understanding with India. The Brahmos cruise missiles, employed in an active conflict for the first time, had played a central role in this change of tune by Pakistan. Developed jointly by India and Russia, the Brahmos is known for its Mach 2.8 speed, precision strike capabilities and versatility across land, sea and air platforms. A day after the devastating strike by Indian Air Force, Defense Minister Rajnath Singh, while inaugurating the Brahmos aerospace plant in Lucknow, highlighted that Brahmos is among the fastest supersonic cruise missiles in the world. Joining the event virtually from New Delhi, he said, and I quote, "Brahmos is not just a weapon, it is a message of the Indian Armed Forces' strength, deterrence capability, resilience and commitment to safeguarding our borders." Marking a historic milestone for India's missile capabilities, the operational use of Brahmos missile in this conflict has not only validated its deterrence value, but also demonstrated its potency as a first strike option in modern warfare.
On the intervening night of the 9th and the 10th of May, Pakistan launched its deadliest missile and drone attack on Indian military and civilian areas. In response, India used its indigenously developed advanced air defence system, the Akash Tir, which over the course of the night emerged as a silent warrior that detected, tracked and neutralized the barrage of Pakistani missiles and drones. The invisible shield on the fateful night stood between the incoming projectiles and their intended targets. Now, developed with an aim to reduce reliance on imports and to increase indigenous capabilities, Akash Tir is a testament to years of commitment under the Atmanirbhar Bharat initiative. Our next report gets you more details.
The horrific terrorist attack on tourists in Pahalgam on the 22nd of April, in which 26 innocent civilians were killed and more than a dozen were wounded, warranted an Indian response that would be catastrophic for the backers of terrorism. Responding to the need of the hour, India launched precision strikes on 9 Pakistani terror camps in places like Muridke and Bahawalpur, veritably sanctuaries of terrorism, on 7th of May. Operation Sindoor, India's kinetic action against terror assets finding safe shelter in Pakistan, had well and truly begun. Pakistan responded by launching swarms of drone and missile attacks, both on Indian military and civilian areas. However, what Pakistan, dependent on imported Chinese HQ-9 and HQ-16 air defense systems, didn't factor in was India's technological self-reliance and superiority in real time, automated air defense warfare in the form of Akash Tir. Akash Tir is India's fully indigenous automated air defense control and reporting system, which has been designed and manufactured jointly by the Defense Research and Development Organization, Indian Space Research Organization and Bharat Electronics Limited. Akash Tir isn't about raw, brute force, but in keeping with the times, about intelligent warfare. The system provides a common real-time air picture to all involved parties. That is, control room, radars and defense gun, thus enabling coordinated air defense operations. It is a system designated to automate detection, tracking and engagement of enemy aircraft, drones and missiles. It integrates various radar systems, sensors and communication technologies into a single operational framework. Akash Tir gathers data from multiple sources, processes it, and allows for automated real-time engagement decisions. Part of the broader C4ISR, which is command, control, communications, computers, intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance framework, Akash Tir works in tandem with other systems. The vehicle-based system is mobile and easier to handle in hostile conditions. But how does Akash Tir compare with the Iron Dome, the illustrious Israeli mobile all-weather defense system? While the Israeli Iron Dome is a specific system designed to intercept short-range rockets and missiles, particularly those originating from Gaza, Lebanon and Yemen, whose complete battery costs around $100 million, the Akash Tir is more cost-effective. The Indian Defense Ministry has also highlighted the fact that Akash Tir is just one part of a rapidly expanding ecosystem of indigenous defense platforms, transforming India's warfighting capabilities. The performance gap between Akash Tir and the imported air defense systems employed by Pakistan has illustrated quite clearly the strategic value of domestic defense systems tailored to Indian needs.
And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of World at War. And if you want to reach out to me with any comments, feedback or suggestions, please feel free to do so on the ID that you're seeing on your screens. I'm your host Mohammed Saleh, and I'll see you again next week.